Welcome to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cattleman's Call podcast. Lane Nordland joining you here today, and if you're listening to this in the fall of 2025, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving break, and if it's afterwards, I hope your upcoming Thanksgiving is going well too. But on today's episode, we are joined by familiar voices in the cattle community. Joining us once again is Dr. Julia Herman, veterinarian and beef cattle specialist at NCBA, and Dr. Danelle Bickett-Weddle from the Preventalytics organization, and they've been working closely with the Secure Beef Supply Advisory Group, delivering education to beef producers, veterinarians, and livestock haulers out in the countryside. And Dr. Herman, how are things going on your end here today?
Everything's going well. The weather's beautiful. We're talking about biosecurity, one of my favorite things. So I guess we're going to call this a win.
And Dr. Bickett-Weddle, how are things going for you?
Oh, just living the dream. It's another beautiful day in the Midwest, and we're excited to talk to you guys about the Secure Beef Supply Plan and how to use it.
Well, we've had conversations around the plan in the past, so I'm looking forward to expanding upon past conversations, maybe some new developments, new strategies, and of course, just having this top of mind for everyone involved in the cattle and beef industries, because it is so important to keep our beef secure, because there's always threats that are known and unknown out there, and it's always good to have that action plan in place when unforeseen things come up, and we hope they never do. But it's good to have that plan. So as we gather for this conversation here today, let's start with you first, Dr. Bickett-Weddle. What is the Secure Beef Supply Plan, and how did it come about, and who truly is responsible for it?
Yeah, the Secure Beef Supply Plan is really the cumulative efforts of industry coming together with state and federal animal health officials. We had academic partners really looking at that just in time, trying to move feedlot cattle to harvest in a foot and mouth disease outbreak. And what might that look like? And over the years, we just expanded that, right? Because we've got all those inputs that are so essential to our food chain. So the Secure Beef Supply Plan overall is a continuity of business plan. If we were to get the big, bad, ugly disease like foot and mouth disease, and we have to put movement restrictions in place, boy, how does that affect your business as a cattleman? So trying to give folks the tools to prepare ahead of time, contingency planning for times of limited animal movement, enhanced biosecurity to protect those precious animals from that contagious disease. We also have tools to look for this disease because we haven't seen foot and mouth disease since 1929. So how do you help folks understand what that's all about? And then the big picture is at the end of the day, you're going to need a movement permit issued by your state veterinarian to move animals out of that hot zone, that control area, safely to marketing or to another production site. So we give folks the tools to request that movement permit so that it's a safe movement, so we can continue to have safe, wholesome beef.
Yeah. And Julia, from your work on this too, obviously there is partners out there too and funding to be able to execute plans like this. Could you expand maybe more on USDA's National Animal Disease Prevention Program grant and NCBA's role in executing it?
Sure. So NCBA received a grant from USDA. So they have this program called National Animal Disease Preparedness and Response Program, and it provides money to different organizations and academic institutions that want to improve ways that we can diagnose and educate about different foreign animal diseases. And so NCBA applied for one of these grants because we wanted to make our industry more prepared through these educational resources. And so a lot of what Dr. Bickett-Weddle already talked about, the standstill, enhanced biosecurity steps, we incorporated a lot of that into building new resources in a multimedia approach. So we have written, we have digital, we have video, but all of this was part of, or I guess this stemmed from our advisory group. So we had an advisory group at the very beginning of this that it encompassed all of our sectors. So we had cow-calf, stocker backgrounder, feed yard, dairy, veterinarians, transporters, all in the same room. They provided a gap analysis of what the Secure Supply Plan resources were. And they're like, these are the things that would make producers like me want or like understand this better and want to prepare and want to try to fill out these steps. And so our grant has really, I mean, we've been able to make a lot of different resources specific to the livestock, our livestock haulers. We know that our haulers are super important in everyday life, but especially going to be really important in a foreign animal disease outbreak. And so we really like I said, we wanted to improve these resources and really connect the dots from where those animals are being taken care of all the way up to communication up to USDA, because USDA veterinarians are going to be involved with this, state vets are going to be involved with this, and we actually had representatives from those groups too. So this really was a broad advisory group providing that push and that impetus for us to create a lot of these educational resources.
And when we look at just how important it is to protect cattle, the cattle producers themselves, the food supply chain, animal welfare, why are grants like this essential for a partnership like with USDA and NCBA? Why is there such a value placed on this research? Because sometimes I think us in the countryside, we get focused on our operations, on calving time, on shipping. We all get busy, but let's talk about the value that truly an animal disease outbreak could have on the cattle industry too.
That's a great question. So the big thing with this is USDA funds were so critical to be able to allow this update and gap analysis to happen, because everything from, inputs to the very end output onto our grocery store, and onto my plate relies on that whole food chain. So the checkoff plan is very different across the different livestock industries. So cattle, sheep, and dairy don't necessarily have access to checkoff funds just like the swine industry does. So if it wasn't for USDA NADPREP to allow groups like NCBA and National Milk Producers Federation, American Sheep Industry to apply for those funds, there really wasn't another mechanism. So what we're trying to use is those taxpayer dollars to try and benefit not only the beef cattle sector, but everything we're learning across the barnyard groups we're trying to employ so that there's one approach for our cattle producers that may raise other species. Because at the end of the day, the virus doesn't really care what's on the other side of that fence line. We're just there to care for them every single day and protect them and provide them with practical resources to be able to do that in a threat like foot and mouth disease.
And Danelle, could you expand on maybe some work that's been done in these other livestock species, whether you've worked on those or you had collaborations with other industry experts on maybe what we've learned from biosecurity on a dairy farm or a pork operation too, and just how, again, they're separate industries, but they are so closely related at the end of the day too?
Yeah, for sure. And, it's really hard sometimes when I get up in front of a group of cattle producers and talk about biosecurity, because they're like, oh, wait, my animals are outside. I can't put them in a barn like the pig or the poultry folks, right? And there's nothing better than cattle because they are so resistant in so many ways. But it makes it somewhat of a challenge. So looking to our partners on the swine side, what have they been able to do as far as excluding some diseases or taking that challenge out? We really look to them when it comes to livestock transportation, right? We know that there are diseases in the swine industry that are carried on trailers. Something we've dealt with here called porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, or PEDV. Boy, the way that virus spread, and we didn't have trade impacts, thankfully, for our swine industry, but the way it spreads is very much like foot and mouth disease might spread. And so the things that we can learn from our swine partners, we've applied, right, Julia, when we had our livestock transporter biosecurity documents. Those folks, reviewed it and critiqued it and said we can really learn a lot from each other. On the dairy side, right, we always say a dairy cow has two careers, right? She's first milking and then, she becomes, part of the food supply chain on the beef side as well. And so H5N1 hit that industry and, really brought out some risks that we didn't know existed in the dairy industry. So trying to learn a little bit about that disease and how it was moving through livestock movement, and how we might try to put some prevention practices in place. Let's learn from each other rather than trying to struggle and get ahead of the curve, keep our businesses moving, keep food on the table for America and the world.
And Julia, for yourself, when you are face to face with cattle producers, whether that's at a state meeting, a local meeting, what are these conversations like when they're asking about the secure beef plan itself, and looking at ways to just be more mindful of not just the unknowns that maybe are outside of the United States, but just being better producers in general?
Oh yeah, I mean the conversations kind of go all over the place, but I think it all comes down to, I mean, what you just said. There's a lot of things that we can't control in the biosecurity realm, but there are a lot of things we can't control, and a lot of that starts with the basics down on each operation. I heard one of my veterinarian friends. He's like, if you've been to one cattle farm, you've been to one cattle farm. And so everybody is going to have to adapt that plan to their operation. And so that's where I enjoy talking to each producer, because we do get to, it's kind of problem solving on how do we reduce biosecurity risk coming onto each operation, because the steps that are being put into place on a daily basis. So, talking about maybe quarantining new animals when they come in to check for disease, or we're separating the younger animals from the older animals because immune systems are different. All of those principles apply in a foot and mouth disease outbreak. And so that's what we are really trying to get at. These are some stepwise things that producers can control on their operation, and they can implement practical things on a daily basis. But then, it's foot and mouth disease. If it gets here, if we're in an outbreak, it's not going to be normal. Nothing is going to be normal. And so understanding what they can do with their operation with contingency planning, like how long can you keep your calves in the fall if you can't sell them right away? Where are you going to get feed? Where are you going to get, where are you going to put them for pasture wise? Creating those, scenarios where people can think about how to implement these, or think about these things before that outbreak actually happens. And so, that's what a lot of the resources on secure beef supply, but then also BQA's biosecurity resources really stemmed from what secure beef supply was already teaching. And we wanted those to be very similar so that people can go and learn from either of those plans. But then if they are needing that contingency plan for foot and mouth disease, they move up to that secure beef supply plan. But BQA and SBS have been partnering on a lot of these educational tools where they're co-branded. We refer to each other on both websites. We make sure that, again, whichever website you go to, you're going to be able to find that information. Whether you're starting from zero, or if you're already ready, working with your veterinarian and your state veterinarian on a secure beef supply plan, all of those resources are available.
And for so many of us in the cattle industry, we're busy, and sometimes things get pushed off until the last minute, or we should have put these panels up 2 weeks ago before we needed to sort calves, or whatever it might be. We always find ourselves sometimes thinking, maybe we should have planned a little bit ahead and taken care of a few things. And I think that's why it's so important as we talk about a secure beef supply plan, or making sure that disease and disease management are top of mind, because I'm up in Montana, and we have different regions where disease is prevalent. I am thinking of Brucella abortus, where there's ranchers in the southwestern part of the state that are in a designated surveillance area. I'm not in that area, but they have to draw blood and get their herds tested and whatnot before they move that area. Our family ranch is on the Fort Belknap Indian Reservation. We have to have trick tests on all of our bulls, whether they've been there all year or were born and raised there. So everybody has some type of experience here in Montana in looking at disease management, but some producers haven't had to think about that either. So when we look at a biosecurity plan, it can seem a little bit daunting, and we're when we look at things too, but how can a producer work to address some of the concerns that are being highlighted in the secure beef supply plan to make it manageable for themselves? What are some easy steps that are being laid out through this process?
Well, one of the things we developed was what we call a step one, movement risk, right? And so, as producers every day, we're making risk-based decisions, and, Mother Nature gets to make a lot of those for us in the cattle industry too. So control what you can. Identify what are some of the movements that you have coming on or leaving the operation. And then the more frequent those are, that might be something you focus on first. And, when we think about transition planning for our beef, enterprises and we're passing to the next generation, that's not an overnight switch, right? I kind of equate biosecurity that too. We're coming into maybe a little calmer season, right? Calves are coming back off the mountains. We're selling our fall calves, kind of thinking about what, breeding choices, genetic choices to make for next year and, purchasing this or buying that. And, maybe you throw that little piece of biosecurity into that list as well. And, just take a step and go, well, what are my risks? What might I look at next year a little bit differently? And then what can I do to practically manage that? So you mentioned trick, right? We talk about breeding soundness exams. So, we want to make sure that whether it's a genetic introduction is safe, right? Or if it's, we're needing to move bulls and we're going to share a livestock trailer with the neighbors, because that's what we do, right? I'm from the Midwest. We share everything. We just don't want to necessarily share bugs. So it's giving folks those little step-by-step opportunities to look at their operation and say, well, what's one thing I can control today? When other things get taken out of your control, that's really what those pieces are there for. And as Julia mentioned, that step one matches right up to that daily biosecurity plan. Nutrition, good feed, right? Those herd health management plans, that's all basic biosecurity that people don't necessarily always give themselves credit for. Then you might want to take it to the next step, and all those resources are available either through BQA or the Secure Beef Supply Plan to help producers.
And Julia, expanding on that too, for our cattle producers tuning in today, where can they maybe participate in an educational session or learning how they can integrate this into existing plans, BQA trainings, attending CattleCon? What are some ways that folks can really dive into this a little more?
Oh man, any and all of the above. We've incorporated a lot of this information, not just on biosecurity, but secure beef supply and the secure beef supply plan and preparedness for foot and mouth disease. We've already incorporated that into our BQA trainings, into our BQA transportation trainings. That example that Danelle talked about with the swine industry and PEDV, we incorporated that into our transportation training so people can see this is a risk and this is what we can do to minimize that risk. So BQA trainings, all of our stockmanship and stewardship events this year, and we have another one coming up. Well, it'll be done by the time this is out, but there's a lot of there's some animal health and biosecurity incorporated into that. But one of the cool things that came out of this grant was we did a train the trainer program for veterinarians, extension specialists, producers across the country. And so it was a train the trainer on everything secure beef supply. And so we wanted a network of educators out in the world to help producers fill out these secure beef supply plans and have them feel comfortable answering questions. And we provided them, goodness, I can't even tell you how many, I think it's like 4 gigabytes of information for these trainers so that they can really adapt what they're training to. Maybe it's an individual one-on-one farm visit. Maybe it's a workshop that they're doing at the local cattlemen's. So we're very proud of that Train the Trainer program that we did. We had over 250 people participate in that. And if anybody's interested in connecting with one of those trainers, they can reach out to us at producered@beef.org, and then we can actually connect you with somebody who can help you fill out one of these secure beef supply plans. But that was one of the things with, it's not just building the resources, it's how do we get those resources out to all the producers across the country. And that Train the Trainer program was super successful. We had Danelle and I had a fantastic time doing that, and we are really proud of the network that we have created with that.
I think it's just so important too, and we touched on it at the beginning of our conversation, but let's use FMD, for example. If that does come into the United States, it disrupts the movement. It disrupts how people can market their cattle, when they get paid. And I think that that's when it gets people's attention. when income is impacted, when herd movement is impacted. So let's focus too on this. The whole thing here is to minimize the disruption of of the event itself and the disruption to cattle movements. How is that though? Let's paint a picture on just all the trickle down impact that would have, but just how important it is on the state level with state officials, with veterinarians, how these plans, on whether it's your own personal plan or on the national scale, just so the disruption of the cattle business is not truly uprooted. Say like it was back in 2003 with BSE, and exports were just shut off and we lost markets for decades. Well, let's maybe highlight just that aspect and the importance of being ready for these things. And we hope they never occur, but truly just trying to be ready for the possibility of it. I don't know who wants to take that one first. That's kind of a big one.
It is. And I mean, that's kind of how all the secure food supplies plans started, because, industry came and said, boy, our industries, whether it's poultry, swine, beef, dairy, we're so integrated from, farm to fork. And if something comes in out of our control that could shut our export market down, what can we at least do domestically, right? We've got 48 contiguous states and hungry people all the way across this world. And so if FMD were to hit, we will lose exports. That's just a fact. We in the United States don't take products from other countries that are having an active FMD outbreak. So we really didn't want to focus on, oh my gosh, that's going to be terrible. We focused on, well, what can we do? How can we help our industry? Because we do have a great domestic market. So working with packers, how are packers going to still be comfortable to take products? Well, foot and mouth disease is not a public health or a food safety risk. It's an animal disease, right? So from that regard, there is no risk to human health to continue to eat this great product. So we've worked with packers over time on what would that movement from a feed yard to a packer look like. Well, and then how do we continue to stock our feedlots, right? It's that continual chain. So that's why it really becomes important that we work as the food industry, right? The secure food supply plans. How can we help each other? How can we learn from each other? And at the end of the day, how do we protect our operations from getting that disease? We've evolved a lot. Foot and mouth disease planning has, gotten to the point where we're now talking about emergency use of vaccine rather than just pure depopulation to control this virus. That's a huge step in the right direction from a protein supply. So again, there's a lot of factors at play. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes to try and protect our industries that are, feeding the world. How do we get back on our feet as fast as possible, keep animals healthy, keep food production moving?
I think seeing how it's not just one producer is going to be affected. We are all going to be affected. And how do we work as a team in this response? And that's what all these secure food supply plans are there for. It's for the entire industry to be on the same page, saying this is what we need, this is what we're trying to do to minimize risk, and it's trying to get that continuity of business. We want to continue that continuity of business as much as we can throughout an outbreak, because again, it's not going to be normal, but how can we make it as close to that as possible? Mm-hmm. So it's looking at the big picture and bringing those lessons from, learning from other livestock industries. So our swine partners and our poultry partners have had to deal with different disease outbreaks that the cattle industry can learn from and incorporate that down to where it is going to affect that individual producer.
There has been such a focus over the past few months, obviously, on the New World Screwworm and its identification that has moved north into Mexico. And I think that's taken a lot of the headlines for a lot of producers that are focused on New World Screwworm 2. What are some of the things that maybe are different between foot and mouth disease awareness and in the secure beef plan and New World Screwworm and trying to prevent that pest from coming into the United States? Obviously, very important things to prevent from coming into the U.S. So what are some differences? What are some things that work well? And when we look at the plan itself, what is a little bit different in the New World Screwworm situation compared to foot and mouth disease?
Yeah, so New World Screwworm is spread by a fly, right? And when we talk about contagious diseases like foot and mouth disease, the biosecurity and the control areas and all of that are very much based on how an animal might spread a virus through all their bodily fluids that's, contagious. Flies don't really respect a lot of the biosecurity things we talk about, right? We talk about a cleaning and disinfection station and not introduce virus on truck tires or anything like that. Well, fly doesn't really abide by that. So the things that are similar are really dependent upon animal movements, because that's what this fly does. Is it lays eggs that turns into larvae, and it eats live tissue, right? So it's a healthy animal that may have, a navel or a scratch from, cutting themselves on barbed wire. That's a whole different ballgame when it comes to foot and mouth disease. So they're not one-to-one by any means, but the preparedness pieces, the contingency plans that we talk about in Secure Beef, like what if you can't move for a period of time? Some of those extra tools, monitoring for disease. We're really going to want producers out there with eyes on those baby calves when they hit the ground to make sure that we're not finding that New World Screwworm on our calves. So similarities, but a lot of differences when it comes to prevention.
And the way that we've been talking about it with producers, not from both the Secure Beef Supply Plan and then also the BQA Daily Biosecurity Plan, looking at those different ways that risks can come onto your operation. So animal movement, honestly, is like you can name a number of different diseases. Animal movement is like the number one way that diseases, whether it's contagious or a fly, spread around. But look at people movement, look at equipment movement. Those are some things where we can look at what is coming onto your operation and what might be a risk for whatever disease you happen to be concerned about. So if we're worried about New World Screwworm, I think the animal movement is going to be huge. So we need to make sure we're paying attention to, having records of where those animals are being moved to, making sure we have, veterinary inspection and health certificates if those animals need to move out of state or other different movements. But one of the other things is this fly, so the larvae are in the live tissue, they have to fall out and pupate, but they need to pupate in organic matter or soil. And so it's not just about transporting the animals, but transporting their manure and, maybe it's bedding within that trailer. So cleaning out trailers and making sure we're not transporting organic matter might be a huge piece to biosecurity for New World Screwworm specifically. So I think adapting these principles that we are talking about from just a generic biosecurity plan, really focusing in on New World Screwworm and figuring out how do we prevent this from happening. And a lot of it comes down to animal movement and managing organic matter.
As we look maybe back to our focus on the Secure Beef Supply Plan, what is the future of the initiative? Obviously, we need to have a little flexibility and look at new research and new tools out there too. What are some new? What can we look forward to with the initiative in the months and years ahead?
So right now, the grant is finishing up, but I know we have a lot of really great things that are going to last for a long time. The biggest thing one of the big things that has come out of this grant is our brand new website. And so I encourage people to go to securebeef.org and check out that new website. We have made it a lot more user friendly, so people can go and figure out if they're interested in training their team on looking for signs, they can go specifically to the training tab and find videos and different resources that they can train their folks on. So I think that is going to have some long-lasting impacts beyond what this grant is going to do. But I think what has also happened with this is all those networks that we have created have also stemmed helped other NADPREP projects or other NADPREP projects build on the Secure Beef Supply Plan. And so we're going to continue, NCBA is going to continue to work with our industry folks and our academic folks who are already implementing a lot of these educational tools. And we're going to continue to partner with them because it's going to take all of us, and continuing that relationship and continuing that communication is going to be super important.
Mm-hmm. And all in all, what are some last tips? We've shared some good recommendations for producers, whether that's on the foot and mouth aspect of things, New World Screwworm, just keeping an eye on things, having a plan in place themselves. Could you just share, each of you, some last tidbits or resources or a bit of information just to help folks? This is scary to talk about. Let's say that first off. I don't want to scare anyone with our conversation today, but being prepared is so vital. So, Danelle, what would you like to start first? Just some things you just like producers to be aware of and what they can do to just be better operators as well in the countryside.
But I would say you don't have to go it alone. Julia mentioned those 250 trained folks throughout the U.S. that are there to help you. Developing a biosecurity plan from scratch, if you've never had to do it, can be kind of daunting. And that's really one of the long-lasting efforts of this project, is to get people out there that know the producers in their area and can help them work on things. So please reach out to that email, producered@beef.org, and we can get you connected if you're interested in having one of those advisors kind of walk and talk it with you. They're also available to give, small group presentations at your state cattlemen's meeting or, a region. So please use those folks. Also, we know it's day by day. So identifying, driving down the road, listening to this podcast, boy, what is one thing that you just maybe doesn't sit well? There's probably a resource to help you get started on that securebeef.org website. And just know that there's a lot of people working behind the scenes on behalf of the cattle industry. I love to eat beef. I want to make sure it's there, and we want to make sure that they've got the support they need through trainers, Julia, myself, the website. There's a lot there to support cattle producers.
Yeah, I agree. It's you don't have to do everything in one day. It's this continuous improvement, which BQA preaches day in and day out. We can always improve on something, and in biosecurity and contingency planning, that's something that we can always do a little bit better. And so I encourage people, if they haven't already, sit down with your veterinarian and start working on this biosecurity plan. Biosecurity planning, herd health planning, emergency action planning, those all overlap. And so they don't happen in a vacuum. And so maybe working with your veterinarian and other consultants on your operation, figuring out how you can incorporate that on a daily basis. And again, just being more intentional about our steps when we're taking care of our animals. We have a lot of passive ways that we're incorporating biosecurity, but how can we think about it more intentionally and really implement those? But it starts with the basics, and a lot of the basics are within both the Secure Beef Supply Plan and that BQA biosecurity plan. So it's teamwork from the ground up.
Well, again, as has been mentioned, securebeef.org. That's a great starting point for so many folks that are tuning in today. It has everything laid out from the plan, biosecurity, traceability, monitoring for disease, discussion around permits, and of course those trainings that were mentioned as well, and a lot of resources that you can look at as well to enhance your biosecurity out on your operations. And Secure Beef Supply Plan. That's been a tough one for me to put together here today, that title, but I think I said it right that time. But again, a lot to look at, but you do not have to go throughout this process alone. There's folks out there, and I'm sure if they have questions, you two would be great resources as well to reach out to. Any last thoughts before I let you get back to your busy days?
No, I appreciate the time, and I am wishing everyone a happy winter.
Well, again, I want to thank you both for joining us. And yeah, hopefully we get some good moisture here this winter. I think it might get a little cold, but we need a little moisture. And if it takes a little cold to get it, I'll take that up here in the northern states. But again, as we mentioned, securebeef.org. Go check it out. And again, so many resources out there for you to look at and help implement on your home operations. Danelle and Julia, thanks for joining us here today. I truly appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity, Lee.
With that, friends, I want to thank you for joining us as well. Again, securebeef.org. Check it out today. I'm Lane Nordlund. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with Lane Nordlund. For more information, visit ncba.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast today.